I would like to welcome you again, welcome back, with our next speaker, Ildar Khabibullin, who is going to speak about service resource model and the alternatives provided to maintaining cybersecurity. Ildar, over to you. Okay, thank you. In the inner stage, I'm responsible for business continuity in terms of cybersecurity, and we've been tackling the reliability and we would like to achieve an expected seamless performance of all these IT infrastructure. We have been addressing different aspects of information security. For analysis, we've been using our COBIT and ITSM knowledge, and we have developed a kind of a summary, which I describe as an alternative approach, which may be very useful for IT and cybersecurity. Basically, we use the same principles: address, availability, accessibility, uniformity, and we use it not only by separate elements of the IT infrastructure, but we're trying to address it specifically within the boundaries of a specific IT infrastructure and a specific service. Therefore, we try to evaluate the criticality of these incidents in a more relevant way, in a more appropriate way, and prevent them from happening, prevent them from repeating. I would like to elaborate on what this approach is all about in a few slides. With infrastructure, we see a set of elements, a bunch of servers, storage, loons, whatever. Separately, we identify the IT system and the IT services that are based upon them. If we try and put everything in the boundaries of the controlled perimeter, we understand that it's going to be a very costly and toilsome solution. It's going to take a lot of labor in evaluating it and actually understanding how it's supposed to work. Information security tools do create additional overheads and additional load, I assume. And sometimes this can be avoided. Even if we do it like that, with this whole fence, it will definitely overload the people with the information messages about incidents. It's going to be very difficult to realize which of them are indeed critical and which of them should be addressed in the first place and which can be postponed. Knowing that, we cannot squeeze this entire infrastructure inside the boundaries of the well-controlled perimeter. It doesn't make much sense. Therefore, here we'd like to take a more addressed, a more specific approach. For example, we have servers that work and storage elements. Quite often, it looks like that we have servers controlled and we collect logs from that. We store the information, and it feels like that this system is quite well protected and everything is fine with it. But if we take a closer look at how everything is interconnected, what is missing from this slide, you will see that all of the servers are connected via switches, and they use networking equipment, and they use SAN switches to connect to the storage, and sometimes it's outside the realms of our control. With a more addressed approach, we use the comprehension, and we cannot comprehend the interaction between those whole set of all of the elements that make up the service provided, which is business critical and should be controlled at all times. Knowing that some of the elements can be outside of the realms of the controlled perimeter, like for example here, there is a switch, and there is some adversarial activity for copying the traffic from some of the ports of the server that are responsible for the business critical data transfer, and obtain a copy of the data viciously and logically breaks the networking integrity. Therefore, it breaks this whole accessibility principle and availability. How can we do it in a more comprehensive way? How can we comprehend this whole scenario? We can comprehend it, of course, with the service resource model. In its essence, the service resource model reflects all of the elements of the IT infrastructure that interact to make this whole IT service functional, to make it really work. And it reflects the connections in the network, in the storage, in the computational part. We can see how it's all related to the systems. We can understand further how this makes the service we provide. If we take the service resource model of such kind, and if we squeeze it inside our perimeter, here we will see a more addressed and yet a more comprehensive defense mechanism created. And here we'll create all of the elements that are needed for the IT servers. This approach actually excludes the possibility of some of the elements getting outside the realms of this monitored perimeter and become non-controllable. This comprehensive approach allows us to identify and stipulate the means of the information security, the precise elements of the information infrastructure that we need to address. For example, we can ping test only those switches and only those servers that are employed for the business critical service. That's a targeted approach, and we'll have to set a more specific and more narrow circle of IT administrators to serve these roles. For example, it can be stipulated in the orders those admins who have a permission to get such access to the system, to certain elements of the verified infrastructure, and which elements should be addressed separately with some specific methods and have a collective approach. This stipulates a very comprehensive approach for business critical missions, for business critical tasks. As well as that, the availability is assessed via CRM. CRM allows us to very simply identify the fault points, those having no redundancy. So if that particular element fails, the system will shut down and the service will become unavailable. We can not only just define the fault points, but also verify the RTO. So these timeouts can be analyzed and forecasted and see what would be the situation right now. And we take into account such essences like clusters of reliability. So if we know that if a failure of one server is protected by a cluster, by inheriting the values from bottom to top, from system to the service, we will see which values affect the availability of the service more significantly. For example, we do not have a switch which is backed up. It's not backed up and it's been working for 180 minutes, and a storage system is one of the components. Its failure may be evaluated with 4,320 minutes. We need to recover it. That's how long it's going to take. And if we choose the weakest link, like for example, the servers, because of the use of the cluster, shows a better result, and we translate this whole result with this current value of the service shown on the slide, which is stipulated by this precise calculation. It also allows us to interact with our customers, allowing us to understand which time they see as desirable. For example, we are recommended to bring the system back within 15 minutes and no longer. Having this stipulated in CRM, we see which elements should be adjusted and backed up. For example, we need to address the routing issue. We can put this task to the stack of switches. We can have our storage clustered and get enough redundancy and reliability. This stipulates a more comprehensive and reliable approach as dictated by the customer. We know that the fewer time we spend doing that, the more costly the service turns out to be. But we'd always be able to find an appropriate balance here. For example, if we just fix this for 15 minutes, but it will cost you quite a lot of money, then the customer would say that 1 hour will suffice, and we will of course find the whole set of solutions which will obviously can allow us to not extend RTO beyond 60 minutes. It's useful not just for the information security, as far as you can see, but it's also useful for all of the IT departments, not necessarily for cybersecurity. per se. We know that SRM sets a foundation for various analytical events, and they will help us make more reasonable decisions. We will have to comply to the federal law for the list of the components that has to be addressed specifically so that they would fit the requirements of the federal law 152 and 187, etc. And we know which and where in the IT services they need to belong, and how these elements meet these requirements. We understand the protection level. We can do pin tests. And more stringent requirements for specific elements to provide a very good protection of such service. We can make lists of people responsible, administrators, and take organizational, managerial activities for protection purposes, do the analysis of how specific elements are protected and how frequently an antivirus software is updated, come up with specific updates policy for them, and some other criteria that are necessary to understand in which condition the IT system currently exists. We can evaluate failures, attacks, and other incidents and events for a specific IT element in terms of consequences and effect, and cascade down these metrics not over this whole infrastructure, but apply it to specific elements and see how it affects or may affect some services. It has a few advantages, of course. It addresses RTO and RPO. We do backups, not based upon a very standard and general approach, but based upon specific requirements of an IT service or IT system. We can come up with IT budget more easily, knowing all that. It's another advantage, and make it more affordable for the customer, stipulating what exactly needs to be modernized in the first place, come up with some good solutions in the portfolio. Knowing these elements precisely, we can cut the costs and see the TCO more transparently, and use that for monitoring purposes, not for the whole infrastructure, but for the services we are interested. We can use that for modernization and introducing changes, setting the priorities for equipment, business tests, doing QS and various other tasks. This is how we use these principles not only to some specific elements of infrastructure, But for the whole SRM, as a separate effect, I should mention that based upon the service resource model, we can evaluate and forecast the impact, the actual impact. Taking a look at the whole infrastructure, we see that some of a server is under attack. But normally we cannot rapidly answer the question on what exactly it affects or may affect, or where this attack is targeted further. But within this system, within this uniform approach, all of our components will be connected and linked to a specific system, knowing which element is under threat. We'll be able to make assumptions. We'll be able to make assumptions where this attack is targeted at, which systems may be affected, what exactly is under the threat, and of course take all of the measures to protect that, even in the aftermath, in order to prevent that from happening once again. So with this business critical approach, we will be getting additional benefits, and we'll be able to see what the failure may lead to of each particular element and see how critical it is. And take decisions to protect it, to protect this element additionally, and modernize it and upgrade it if necessary. That's the end of my story. I'm done with my presentation. I wanted to show you somehow how we'd use the ITSM and COBIT approach in a simplified way, which we did. We did simplify that, and we applied all that in our projects to make this available, affordable for the whole IT and for cyber security issues specifically. Thank you very much, Ildar. Thank you, Ildar, for your interesting presentation. Currently, I cannot see any questions in our chat, so I suggest that we wait for like 5 minutes for more questions to come up. If there are no questions, we'll just break for coffee or commercials. Thank you. Well, Ildar, I suppose we won't have to wait for the next 10 minutes for more questions to come. But if you really would like to ask further questions, you can leave your messages here. And of course, the speaker will be getting all of them and will come back with answers. Ildar, thanks again for your presentation and goodbye. Thank you. Bye.